Please welcome back Tuwaine Barrett, Marianne Jean-Baptiste, and Mike Leigh. Thank you and congratulations to all of you. I'm not sure if everybody in the audience knows how you work, Mike, your process. So maybe we can just say a little about that. You start with no script and you work with your actors to create the characters and the situations. But there must be something, an initiating idea or a basic premise at the beginning. I'm wondering what it was in this case.
It's not a question with an answer, really. I mean, the truth is that in the way that painters paint, and novelists write novels, and poets write poetry, etc., we make these films of mine, and this film is no exception, by embarking on a journey of discovering what the film is on the journey of making it. I mean, obviously, I had some notions and ideas, but obviously I decided to deal with this particular corner of society. But I have ongoing preoccupations, which you can see in various films. So I can't really talk in the pitch language, the Hollywood pitch language of what the idea was as such. There were lots of things. But yes, I get together a group of actors. I work individually with each of them to find and create a character. They can talk about this. The real main thing that then happens in a long period before we get to the shoot is to bring into existence the world of the characters, their relationships, their backstory, they're going right back to the beginning, etc., etc. But the real issue, the real job is shooting the picture. And what I do just before we start is to write a very broad scenario, and which is only there to help me to structure it a bit and to help us to plan it and so on. But scene by scene, sequence by sequence, location by location, we work from using the kind of very in-depth character improvisation which we've been doing for months, and we go to the location, we improvise, and we then script through rehearsal. One of the myths about my films, and including in some quarters about this one, is that what you're looking at is actors ad-libbing on screen. Well, there's not a single moment in this film which is, in that sense, is ad-libbed. I mean, we arrive at a very precise piece of action, part of which, of course, is what people say as much as what they do or what they don't say. It's very structured and precise, and I hope I can say, in cinematic terms, classical in its construction. And apart from the only other thing I would say about, in answer to your question, then, is that it's not just about what the actors do. It's a great collaboration between actors, production designer, costume designer, makeup designer, cinematographer, and everybody else, basically. In order that we're all on the same page, talking the same language, creating the same world in a completely detailed and organic way.
How long was the process of preparation and rehearsal in this case?
14 weeks.
Wow.
Shorter than...
that
we're in prison for 14 weeks.
That is relatively short for you, isn't it?
It is short, yes. I mean, to some degree, these things are, to a great extent, in fact, They are defined by the budget. And it was quite tight.
Marianne, so this is your first time working with Mike since Secrets and Lies.
Yes.
Except, although we did talk about this, you did actually compose the music for one film in the interim, Career Girls.
And a very fine score.
Yes.
It is.
So what was it like to return to the fold?
It was amazing. It was, I mean, after working in a very different way for a long time, to go back to where it sort of started. When I first worked with Mike, it was very close after leaving drama school. And so, you know, there was still this sense of adventure and exploration and, you know, pushing things out and wanting challenges. And then you sort of slip into the conventional way of making films and telling stories. And I was very hungry for this type of experience again. But then at the same time, you can't unknow what you now know. So it was about really being brave again and being bold and trusting, you know. What I realized working with Mike is that, God, I really trust him, you know, to take care of me, to make sure that I'm not going too far, you know. And so, yeah, I hope that answers your question. It was wonderful.
Could you tell us a bit about the process of creating this very layered, very difficult character?
Trade secret.
Yes, I mean, I will try and make it as short as possible. Basically, how the process will start off is you'd come in with a list of people that you know from real life, and we'd both go through them and you know, siphon out ones that weren't right. I mean, Mike would make those decisions about who was right and who wasn't. And then you know, you may end up with like 3 people, and then you just explore bringing those characters to life, and you start to sort of like build this character. You would start from their first memory and go right up to the age that they are when you see them in the film. And that's what you do in isolation with Mike. The next step might be you might walk into a room one day and he might say, oh, this is going to be your sister, brother, son. And then you start again trying to build a parallel history with that person. So it's very detailed, which is important. It's important that the characters know where they grew up, for example, what school they went to, you know, who were their neighbours who lived across the street, what buses took them there. I mean, that's how detailed the character building is in this process.
But of course, it's important that, I mean, we began with the 2 sisters, because they obviously precede the husband and the son and the other daughters. And of course, once it starts to grow, in the nature of real life, what each character, how each character develops is to a considerable important extent defined by the relationship with the other character. So, you know, just as we affect each other in real life.
Tuwaine. This is your first time working with Mike, I assume?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to hear your, like, how you created your character with Mike.
Similar to Marianne, I went in with a huge list of black males that I knew. And we spent, I think, 2 days, 3 days, maybe just going through the list. And what was so great was, you know, I was naming all these people that I knew, but they had, what's the word? They didn't have substance, some of the people I was naming.
I mean, actually, the truth of it is, we can say it. Really.
Can we say it?
We can say it. Okay. I mean, the fact is, he's a very sociable guy, is Tuwaine. And first of all, because I just say, talk about people you know. So in a long list of very interesting, positive, slightly showbizy, sort of pizzazzy kind of guys, you know. And I had some notion of where we wanted to go. So we got to the end of this, and I said to him, great, but see if you can think about, I mean, were there any losers when you were at school? And I think I can report there was just a moment of Tuwaine going, I get it, yeah, it's not just a showbiz thing we're doing. You know?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. It was great, and like creating this character was extremely difficult. But as Marianne said, with Mike's leadership and guidance, I was able to make it possible. And I think the whole time, even now, I still have imposter syndrome. You know, it feels really incredible being up here with Marianne. I mean, yeah, phenomenal.
I've been in this business for a very long time, and I think I could say that you ain't seen the last of Tuwaine Barrett.
I was wondering if each of you, or any of you, could say a little bit about why it's important to begin with a real person, even though obviously you then build and create from there. But why is that important as a starting point?
Who are you asking?
Any of you.
Any of them. I mean, I think it's important to root the character. Do you know what I mean? And if you have a real person, then you've got somewhere to go from. You're not just sort of like creating something from your imagination.
The truth of it is that I don't actually know what else you could. There are people. Some of you here this afternoon, I'm sure, are involved in actors' workshops of various kinds, where you kind of just see what happens and you just start improvising and all of that. A lot of that is to do with the actor. If we're really honest about it, the actor playing himself, playing herself, just finding something within herself. Now, I'm not interested in that. I mean, this is about... No, and that's not a joke. Seriously. Oh, gosh, what's funny, really? No, I'm not, because it's about looking at the real world. And I don't really know what I would do by way of starting. Whereas if we say, okay, let's start from real people, let's do what an artist does to draw from a source, that gives us a jumping off point. It can grow, we can push it in different directions, but it means there is something to start with and something to work from.
Marianne, I was curious to maybe hear you say a little bit about figuring out the physicality of the character, Pansy, because I mean, she's obviously very verbal, but it also is, it's such a full body performance in some ways. There's something very distinctive about her personality, about her physicality.
Yeah, I think that all the layers that we put on in terms of, you know, her pain, you know, her background, the way she moves through the world. I did little exercises where I would sort of like go to the supermarket as Pansy. No one got hurt in the process. But it was just interesting to see how, if you don't want to come into any contact with anyone, do you know what I mean? How you move. Do you know what I mean? She was tight. So it's like just moving through space in a tight way, where you look, you're looking out for people to say something to you, do something to you. Do you know what I mean? You're always get ready for a fight. So I think just those exercises were very useful to create Miss Pansy.
Well, another aspect, I think, Mike, you mentioned your production designer. I was curious about, you know, Pansy's home and the discussions that the two of you had with, in terms of designing this very kind of barren, sterile space.
Susie Davis is the production designer and very versatile. I mean, apart from anything else, she's done very different kinds of movies. We did what we always do. We shared with her what the kind of world we were talking about, the background, the culture, and so on. Actually, she started to put things in which were too decorative, really.
Yeah,
weren't they?
they were. There was like vases and it was like, but surely, and you go, oh no, this is.
But once, as with all good, great designers, once she got the hang, once she realised what it was we were creating, and of course, you know, the design of that house was being worked on simultaneously with the girls' flat. And of course, it's obvious that the contrast, the difference, is there to be exploited. You know.
I'm curious about, you know, Marianne, you talked about just the pain of the character, and I think, you know, anger also is a defining quality. And the film, in a way, kind of asks, you know, it poses the question, or it begs the question of why Pansy is this way. And I think what's interesting about the film is it doesn't ever really answer that question, but perhaps it gives you some hints. And I'm wondering was it important for you as the actor to know where the pain came from or not?
Oh yeah, I mean, as the actor, you know, I knew where the pain came from. And so it was, to play that was easier. I think that, and also I have to add that in the way that we work, the actors don't know what the actual story is going to be. We don't know any of the scenes that don't involve us. We've got no idea what they are. So, you know, you're kind of just living day to day with what's on the list of things to do. This has come up quite a lot with there not being some kind of resolution, and I think that's beautiful. I think that it allows the audience members to go away and decide, make up their own mind. We very often don't know where people's pain comes from. You know, if you get accosted in the supermarket, you might think, God, bloody hell, what's wrong with her? Do you know what I mean? Or that guy's got a problem. But you're not sort of like, oh, there might be a bit of OCD there, or, you know, he might be bipolar, or... We don't do that. We just say F off, or, you know, clutch our pearls and move away. And I think that the movie's great in that way, of just sort of going, there's something wrong with her.
I must say, I mean, I absolutely object to directors or anybody talking about explaining the film you've just seen, because I don't want to do that. No, I think it's very boring. So if you're going to clap at this moment, please do. I mean, I've sat at film festivals, to digress, I've sat at film festivals through any number of directors explaining in detail just what you've just seen, or worse, explaining in detail what you're just about to see. However, we digress. I don't think I only want to say this, it's not absolutely entirely true that there is no explanation in the film, because there is the cemetery scene, and I think what happens there, and subsequently in the direction it points in, is important, and that's all I would say.
Okay, one last question. Mike, in your introduction, you mentioned this question after the screening of Naked, which obviously has stayed with you for 3 decades, about Johnny and whether he's still alive 24 hours after the film ends. I'm not going to ask the question about what happens 24 hours after this film ends, but I did want to ask about the ending and choosing to end on that note of sort of openness, ambiguity.
Do they? Don't they? Will she? Will he? I hand it over to you. I mean, I've done that quite often. It's not a cop-out, you know, it is, you know, it is important for you to go away with stuff to work with and to savour, if you like, and to argue about. But what's also important, of course, is in and amongst the question what happens is that we last see your man there, the Piccadilly Circus, possibly onto a good thing. She was an American girl, wasn't she?
I think she was from New York.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that's a great place to end. So thank you to all of you.